I think it was July of 2008, our base ended up getting attacked. And it was fairly rare for a FOB our size, a medium-sized FOB. It could take a C-130, but it's still out fairly remote to get hit. And we got hit with, we were on a night cycle, so we were sleeping during the day, but we did know that the base was getting peppered with a little bit more contact than normal, being probed a little bit during the day. And we got a briefing as we came on shift, pre-flight our aircraft. We went to go eat. We'd call it midnight chow. And basically we're just waiting to get called. And if we don't get called in a certain amount of time, we'll go out and fly a mission to just look for something. And it's 4 pilots. We're the only folks sitting in this chow hall. It's quiet. We're eating. And then we get called on the radio that the base is starting to get attacked. So like suicide bombers are hitting the perimeter, small arms fire coming over the wire. Mortars a little more effective or whatever they're shooting at us than normal. And our base just had rarely ever been hit, like certainly not since we've been there. It had probably been 5 years since that place got hit like this. So we're all pretty slow pilots. So we run to the aircraft after eating, which is not a good scenario.
How far is that?
Yeah. So, we had a gator with us, like a little 4x4 that got us close enough to our TOC. And then we'd run from there probably 200 yards maybe. So it's not far. There's no cover as you're running out. And it's the first time that I can remember like seeing rounds coming in, tracers and gunfire that we could see and hear as pilots, like outside of a cockpit. So we run out, our crew chiefs are running out, and you usually have a crew chief that launches you from the pad. You always do. So as we're getting into the aircraft, again, like we're seeing rounds coming in at us, which is completely unusual for us. And we're trying to tell our crew chiefs, like, hey, just disconnect and go inside. Like, we'll be all right. Let us launch. And it was one of those moments for me, like super proud as a commander. I'm watching my guys, like they have zero protection. Once we're in the cockpit, we've got some ballistic protection. They've got nothing. And they're standing on the wing, like making sure we can launch them. Apaches are notoriously bad. We call them hangar queens because they just spend a ton of time with maintenance. There's so many avionics and advanced tech on them that they just break a lot. So like them being there to make sure we launched was huge, and they got us off the ground. And we put them in for awards later. Like Apache crew chiefs aren't like Black Hawk or Chinook crew chiefs who get to go on missions. There's no door gunners. Like they don't get to go with us. Yeah. So like this is them putting their ass on the line for us. And it was pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
So we launch, and as we're getting ready to take off, the radios are coming online. And part of being an aviator is just managing a ton of radios. Like you've got UHF, VHF, you've got FM, you've got HF, SATCOM, like you're constantly talking to people, like other aircraft, wingman, TOC, ground force. And as soon as we got on the radio there, it was immediate eruption of like everybody yelling because our base just hadn't ever really been attacked. An artillery unit was responsible for base defense, and that's not their main thing. They're not an infantry unit. So they're trying to manage what's going on. And as we took off, we're trying to get our bearings. Usually we'd have like at least 30 minutes to talk to a ground force and get oriented on a target, even if it's on a map. Here it's immediately we're in a fight and we're taking small arms fires. We take off and just trying to get situationally aware. And this ground force isn't used to running a battle like this. So they're doing their best. They've got different optics on the wire and they're trying to talk us onto targets. And so we're at Salerno, and not far away is FOB Chapman, which has a lot of the special ops folks and 3-letter agencies. And they've got guys pouring out to get a part of this fight. So you've got artillery folks rolling out of the wire, people who we have no comms with coming outside the wire to go and fight. And they're dealing with, a pretty devastating VBIED that had taken out the front gate. So they're just trying to manage a lot and talk us onto targets. And we're the only air cover they got. So it took us a little bit of time to get situationally aware. It's at night, and we had made the mistake of putting me in the back seat. So as the commander, I'm typically in the front seat running the battle. I'm on the guns, and the guy in the back seat is flying the aircraft. They have more spatial awareness of what's going on. The guy in the front seat is really narrowly focused on shooting something. And if you're the commander, you're talking to everyone, you're on the map and running the battle. But for pilots, you have to get a certain amount of time in both seats to stay qualified. So I was flying in the back seat that night, and our most experienced pilot, like the godlike person in our unit, was in the front seat. So this is the guy who, in a moment's notice, could bounce you out of the unit, like if you don't know your stuff. So you're always on edge flying with this guy, and now I'm in the wrong seat, and we're in a pretty chaotic environment. And we get set up, and what we do as Apaches sometimes to deconflict airspace when it gets real tight. I mean, oftentimes you'll fall into a lead trail formation where you're moving around, but most of the time you don't have to. So what we'll do is on our computer screen, we'll drop this icon that's like a giant rectangle with a grid in it. And one aircraft will put it on the terrain and then text it over to the other aircraft. And then you both have the same frame of reference, and you'll say, all right, you stay north of this, I'll stay south. And so as long as you can deconflict there, you don't have to worry about running into each other. So you kind of do a little orbit on either side. So that's how we deconflicted. We're both looking and trying to pick up targets, and it's really hard to discern like friend from enemy on the ground. And we finally get talked on to a couple targets. Like there's a couple folks with RPGs like hiding in a wadi, like maneuvering. So we get talked onto that, and I am now trying to run the battle and get my front seater set up to take a shot. So I come around on an attack profile. I get lined up, and basically we're 3 kilometers out. I start bumping up to altitude, and what you do is you bump up, and then you get this attack profile. You kind of nose over, and then you give the front seater a lot of time to get the optics on the target, and then they can shoot. So we get lined up. I clear him. The radios are going nuts. And right at the last second, he's like, all right, am I clear, sir? And I said, yep, you're clear. And as soon as I said that, our wingman flew right between us and the target. And I mean, it was so disconcerting when that happened. So he did not pull the trigger then, thank God. Like we would have shot our wingman out of the sky potentially. And we're talking a distance of like 1.5 kilometers. So they weren't right in front of us, but on the screen, and we're both looking now at his screen. So like I'm trying to make sure I'm oriented and I understand what he's looking at. And like the whole screen is taken up by our wingman. So I brake, I start climbing a little bit, and probably it takes me 2 to 3 seconds, and he knows like I have fucked up big time. And he's like, hey sir, you all right? Like, can you keep flying? And all I wanted to say was like, can we just go home and fucking shut this thing down? Because I almost killed our wingman. Like, these are my guys. This is my unit. I'm commanding this unit. And that almost happened on my watch. And to this guy's credit, he was like, hey, we got this. Like, go get lined up again and let's shoot these dudes. And we did. So we came back around, got lined up, cleared us, came in, took the shot. He took him out with some 30 millimeter. And we were back in the fight. And I didn't think much of it again. Kind of like, playing sports, like you got to put that last play behind you. Certainly when we landed, I was like, should I just turn in my flight suit? Like, this is crazy that could have happened. And there was just a ton of support. Like, it happens to anyone. Not that, but like anyone in aviation is going to have a mishap or an issue.
I mean, to me, I don't know shit about flying, but that seems like something that isn't so much of a mistake as it's just an unfortunate reality, right? I mean, what could you have done different?
Yeah. So, and in that sense, had I spent more time in the back seat and more focused on being a backseat pilot, that would not have happened. Like if we were switched, that would not have happened.
Okay.
I'm just used to running the battle and looking out and shooting. But huge learning experience. And there was no negative impact to me. It was very much like I owned it, took it, and we did really well that night.
Yeah.
We ended up pushing these guys off. The attack continued into the next day with sporadic fighting, but like really, once we took off and started shooting, once the Apaches were there, like people broke contact effectively. Yeah. So that was great, but I will say like that was tough for me, and we still had another 7 months to go in that deployment.
Man, that's an intense.
I felt like crap.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, that's an intense thing. How were you guys on station? That
2.5 hours, and then we would land, refuel, come back up, and keep going. And you have limits as to how long you can fly, depending on if you're flying MVGs, you can fly a little bit longer at night. If you're flying FLIR out of one eye, it's not very long. Like probably had 4.5 hours that we could fly at that time.
Yeah. Wow.